Senator McCain, thank you so much for joining us. I've spent the morning with a Palestinian journalist who was recently evacuated from Gaza, and he described the most horrific images. He talked about dogs eating human flesh. He talked about the hunger, the lack of shelter, the children that are traumatized. I just want your assessment of the current situation and what your teams are facing on the ground at the moment.
Well, the best way I can describe it, and I've been told this by our people who are on the ground, is that it is a complete disaster. It's catastrophic. And the difficulty, as you just said, is that people are hungry. It's more than hunger. I mean, we've seen famine in the north. We've seen people doing exactly what you said, describing dogs and things like that. And the desperation, you and I will both do anything to feed our children, and that's exactly what we're seeing there. We've been unable to get our trucks in at scale and get them in safely and unfettered along the way. We're trying. There's been a little more ability recently, but not a whole lot. I mean, this is a really desperate situation. We need to get in.
How frustrated are you about your trucks not being able to get in?
Very frustrated. I mean, what we do is so important. And either an inability to get in or a miscommunication, from wherever it came from, and we get stuck at a checkpoint, and then by the time the sun comes up, people figured out we're there, and they loot the entire convoy. I'm not faulting them for looting; they're hungry, and we should be able to get in a way that's again at scale and unfettered. We welcome everything, every way to get in there. The pier that's coming online, Ashdod, Erez, Kerem Shalom. But the truth is that we're not getting it. We need the way for us to get food in at scale is to go in by road, and we've not been able to do that at scale.
Who do you blame for that?
Oh, I think it's a series of things. I don't want to play the blame game. I know what I should be doing, and we need to be getting our trucks in there, and we just aren't. And so I would prevail on the good thoughts of everybody to help us do that.
But I guess, in the past, the World Food Programme has said that food is, in certain conflicts, used as a weapon of war. Do you see that being done here in Gaza?
Well, what I do know is food's not getting in, and what I do know, people don't have food on the ground, and they're desperate. So in whatever way you want to describe it, I know that we need to get in and we need to feed people, and we're not getting that done.
When you say famine, I just want you to help our audience understand what that means. What does that look like?
Imagine a child wasting into the size of a skeleton, and then, of course, passing from it. An adult doing the same thing. That's what we're seeing on the ground. And if we could get in now, we might be able to fend off a hardcore famine, but we're not there yet, and we're not getting in. And so I appeal to those who are in charge to please allow us to go in at scale, and more importantly, give us full access. Some days we can go in, the checkpoint's here, then they say, no, you can't go that way, when we were cleared to go that way, and then you have to go back out. So it's a combination of all kinds of confusion. It's a war zone also, and so you have miscommunications everywhere.
And while we're talking, more children are dying as a result of hunger.
Yes,
in this actual exchange,
right.
we are seeing that, aren't we?
Well, now we're seeing movement out of Rafah. People are being pushed north again, and then they're being pushed into a smaller area. So what does that mean? The sanitation, the lack of water, the lack of food, the lack of medical supplies, it's all part of this. If famine or hunger or any of these, it isn't just about food. It is about all the other things combined.
Are you feeling hopeful with this pier that's arrived? I mean, as you say, you welcome aid from anywhere.
I welcome aid from, as I said, welcome aid from anywhere. But it's going to take every entry to be able to fix this, every entry point into Gaza to be able to fix it.
And the World Food Programme is going to be actively part of the operation of the pier. Just if you can explain to us how that's going to work.
We're going to manage logistics. So once the goods come off the ships and onto the piers, then we're going to help manage it and distribute it as well.
Will that be with local staff that are working there, U.S. troops? How is the logistics?
Well, so far there's no U.S. troops on the ground. So my understanding is that there will be civilians helping, that there will be various organizations like ours and others that are on the ground there. And as to the exact way it's going to work, I'm not quite sure yet, but we're getting there.
Aid workers are dying in this conflict. Mm-hmm. How do you ensure the safeguard and safety of your workers?
Well, that's the beauty of a WFP worker. They're brave. They will go the extra mile to get whatever they need to get in. But the truth is we can't protect them. That's why I'm asking for safe access for our workers and all aid workers going in there. We can't continue to kill randomly aid workers who are desperately trying to get in and help, stave off the situation as it is. Ceasefire would be the best. A ceasefire would be something that would really be helpful in every aspect of this, and I don't see it anytime soon.
You don't see that happening?
No, I don't.
Has that made you lose hope?
I don't lose hope, no, but I do get frustrated. You asked me if I get frustrated. That's what frustrates me, is just like the confusion and the misunderstanding or the misrepresentation, whatever it may be, has been has frustrated me a great deal.
Do you express that frustration with Prime Minister Netanyahu, for example, or the President Joe Biden?
I have mentioned this and talked about it with anyone who will listen to me, because it is so frustrating, and it's so dangerous to do this. And we've already lost so many people to hunger. We can't do that anymore, and especially children, the most harmless of all of them, and yet they're taking the brunt of this.
What keeps you up at night?
I'm asked this quite a bit. I'll tell you what really does seriously is having to make the decision because of a lack of funding about taking food from the hungry and giving it to the starving, and where I do that from. And those are decisions I make every day, and that keeps me awake at night. And it makes me teary too. A few tears.
It's the dilemma you're currently facing in Gaza.
It is. It's what we're facing in Gaza. We're facing it in Sudan. We're facing it in the Sahel. I mean, it's all over. Chad, South Sudan, Somalia, you name it. We're facing it everywhere.
We've had a team recently in Sudan covering the humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, good.
That would be at the top of your agenda as well, because of course it's perhaps the worst humanitarian crisis right now. I know we use these words often, but it's hard to sort of explain that to people, what that means.
Well, leaving it as it is, or ignoring it, or not getting in there at full scale on our behalf, from our standpoint, has the potential for Sudan to become the largest humanitarian catastrophe on the planet. So that's how dangerous this is and how catastrophic it is in there. Because we simply can't get in. We right now can feed about 2% of the people that we're trying to get to, when we should be feeding 100% of them, and we can't get in.
In your current capacity, and you've been in different circles and around power and close to power, and sort of understand how it works. The journalist I spoke to, the Palestinian this morning, said to me, the international community has let us down. They don't care. How would you respond to him?
I think that's wrong. I think the international community, and I will speak to the UN, because that's the part of the international community that I belong to, has done everything we can to get in and help. As far as the politicians, we could, I'll leave that to the powers that be.
What would you like to happen now? Because as you say, there are a number of crises that you're dealing with. Funding is always an issue. WFP, the UN is always asking for more humanitarian aid. What is it that you see as the most pressing issue in this moment?
I think the rapid advancement of hunger on all levels, it's combined with climate change and conflict and the remnants of COVID and economic instabilities. All of these things have led itself to an African continent, certainly, that is facing human disaster because there's just not enough food. We have the capability as a world to feed everyone on this planet, yet we don't. And so those are things that I think about every day. I try to figure out how we can do this better, how we can do it more efficient, more effective, be more effective at how we do it with less money. because that's what we're faced with. But I might add, the British people have been remarkable on helping WFP and other organizations around the globe on just these kinds of things.
Just finally, when you say we can feed the world multiple times over, but we don't, is that because of a lack of will?
No, I don't think it's because of a lack of will. I think it's a combination of things. Like I said, sometimes it's just the situation we're in. There's no roads. There's no, there's a combination of things, and each area is different. So I would leave that to the local people to tell me what's not working, and we do listen to what goes on locally, so we can do it better or do it differently, depending on what it is. But it's everything. I mean, we need to be, as a planet, we need to be stepping up to these catastrophes like this in a better way. We can no longer ignore things because it affects all of us in the long run. There's a generation of children, both in Gaza and in Sudan and in DRC Congo and other places, that won't have the kind of nutrients to develop good brains. So the future of that country is, with people that were not fed well enough. And so what does that mean for future leadership and future stability and not anger along the way? It's very important that we not only feed, but we feed the right way.
What do you think Senator McCain would think if he heard and saw the way things were playing out today?
Oh, I think he would be mad, and I think he'd be horribly frustrated. I know he'd be yelling at the top of his lungs for many, many different reasons in this war, and I think he would be doing everything he could to make sure that we could feed, but also make sure that we could end this thing in a civilized manner, in a way that we can move forward and get people fed and get people housed and educated.
Cindy McCain, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.